Okay.
Okay, Arno, we have another section of the secrets for online sessions. Today, you're going to enlighten us about the pre-talk and the induction.
Yes.
Okay, jump right in. Give it all to us.
Right. Okay. Well, now I'm thinking in terms of the pre-talk, what's important for you as you go into it is just to keep a few things in mind. And one thing I've noticed is that for some reason, clients tend to want to speak a lot more on these video sessions. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's because they're in their comfortable environment, or maybe it's an association with being on the phone or something. But what I found is that some clients will just keep talking. They won't shut up. And you know as well as I do, that can be a big problem, when you have a certain time frame to achieve things. So what you want to do is you want to just kind of take control of the session and, guide the client. So first off, that little write-up that SAIH recommends that you get from your client before the session, I think that's very important because, that helps you save time, and it can also help you get your client to focus. I just don't know what it is for some people. They just want to chat and chat and chat more than when they're in your practice. So it's a fascinating phenomenon.
Could it not be that perhaps because we know how very important rapport is on all levels, that maybe there is an added need for rapport, and that's why the client is more inclined to speak more or linger in that phase longer, because
it's possible.
It's easier to get rapport when you're in the same room because there's more senses that can get involved. And you do feel it, especially with a stranger, you feel a sense of disconnection when you only can go with the sense of sight and hearing,
Yeah.
So for that, in my terms, I would call it an energetic connection. It might take a little longer. Maybe that's why they're lingering.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Although I found this even with clients I've seen many times, in my practice, and then on the video calls I want to chat more, and that's fine if you have time for it. If you have availability in your session time. I don't know about your sessions, but my sessions are so packed that I don't actually have a lot of extra time, for chit-chatting. We build the rapport, but we get things done and we get going because else we run out of time. So that's something I feel is very important. And then also, we've spoken about the technical side about how you position yourself. But I do recommend that you put yourself in a way, almost like I am right now, where you just have your head, right? Or like a small piece of your upper body like that maybe. But the same for your client. And this is very, very important, Claudia, because you need to calibrate on that emotion so finely. Yeah. And unfortunately, with the quality of the connection, with the video often not being that clear, if you have too much of a person, then you're not going to see those minute little changes in facial expressions. You're going to possibly miss important information. So you want to educate your client to just put it close enough so you can see at least their face. Obviously, if that connection is so beautiful and you've got a nice big screen in front of you and you can get a lot of detail of their posture and their upper body as well, then it's good. Generally, I've found that if you do that, though, you're probably going to miss information. So that is very, very important to just have your client like that. And then also when you start to going into induction, which we're going to talk about just now, it's important to realize that they must be able to see your eyes, right? If you're too far away like that now, then what's going to happen is you're going to lose some hypnotic effect. But if you're up close like this, you're going to get a very different effect. And we're going to, just now when we get to the induction, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, right. I can feel that pull already when you remove yourself and when you come closer. Yeah.
Instantly. So that's a little trick. And even in your language, in your tonality, I know not everybody has done the conversational hypnosis course where we focus a lot on tonality, but what you want to do is, if you want to emphasize certain words, if you want to be more powerful in your suggestions. Bring yourself closer to the screen when you say them, right? Because then the client, the volume will increase and client will tend to have more of an impact. That's right, just like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And if there's too much small talk and the client's just talking, like, just kind of go like this.
Yeah.
And then that kind of sense that there's almost a little bit of a break in the connection, almost that fractionating rapport. Yeah, important concept in this.
Yeah, so it's
context.
the leaning into your client to encourage,
yes.
and the removing myself to a degree because you swearing away from the actual topic.
Yes,
makes sense. Yeah,
exactly. It's a nice little tool that you can use. Okay, so I think that's a nice starting point. And what I also want to mention is that with your training at SAIH, right, you've got everything you need to be able to do online sessions. You already have it. If you've done our training, you've got it, right? It's just what we're going to do now is we're just going to emphasize certain areas. There's not much new information. It's in actual fact just kind of focusing on which areas you need to lean on a little bit more to be more effective in your online sessions, if that makes sense.
absolutely.
Right.
So what would be the first point?
So let's quickly just talk about eye contact, right? Now, what's very, very important when it comes to working with your client is you do not want to keep permanent eye contact, right? This is weird. And it also has the effect that the client cannot go into their mind and narrate their experience. So you have to break eye contact, right? So I don't know, for some reason, some people think when there's a screen involved, you have to kind of look at this like this all the time. And it's actually not ideal. So what you want to do is you want to constantly break eye contact so the client can actually go inside, feel the emotion, and get the words out. But in order for you to break eye contact, you need to have a reason. And what we use is we use our clipboard and writing, right? There we go. It's our trusty little friend. So what you want to do is you want to sit like this and constantly write. Now, if your client doesn't know that you are writing, the fact that you are sitting like this is weird, right? So you need to constantly, as you're talking to your client, say things like, I'm just making a note, or every now and then what I'll do is I'll actually lift their papers up like this so they can actually see that I'm busy writing, or I will lift my pen and I'll go like that. Right, just so that they are aware that I'm constantly making notes. It validates them, it makes them feel it's important, I am writing it down, and at the same time it's an excuse for me not to constantly absorb all the attention with eye contact.
I sense another aspect here. I sense also confidence, because if I'm not confident, I tend to lock into you to absorb everything. But if I have the time to look down and make notes, that means I'm in charge. I handle this.
Absolutely. So it also helps with that rapport, helps building and setting up that rapport. Okay. Yeah, so let me just quickly see here. Yes, I think in terms of the pre-talk, that is the most crucial things. Again, the chunking process that we teach, RSA, CC2, conversational, more in CC4, analytical pre-talk, it's everywhere. Go through that, use that process. The process, identify the problem, get clear on the problem, chunk down on the problem by asking investigative questions, get that outcome, chunk up on that outcome to get to ultimate goal, and then set up a waypoint. So that is very important. We always do that. If you don't do that, you're not going to have clarity, and the client will be able to move those goalposts. So that's just a little recap, and that's the core and the essence of your pre-talk. If you had your client fill in or send you a little write-up in combination with your chunking, that should pretty much be your pre-talk, except maybe for building a little bit of rapport. Obviously, I'm not talking about a first session. A first session, you will also have to cover misconceptions. So that's a normal. But further, it is pretty much the same. There's not a lot that changes from the one-on-one to this, except you just have to be vigilant that the client cannot see your body, so they don't know what you are doing, right? So if you are gesturing or whatever, like I'm gesturing like crazy here, but you can't see my hands, so you're not even aware that I'm doing that right now. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to become a little bit more expressive with your facial expressions, with your tonality, you know, and so on. And that comes with a little bit of practice, just to get that information across. And then remember to make very complete notes, because what you want to constantly do is feed back the client's words, right? Now, this becomes even more important on an online session, because in a physical session, your body language kind of shows the client that you are on board, right? So you are, when you lean in and when you change and when you gesture, they can see all of that and they feel the engagement, right? But on an online session, they don't have that information. So in order to have that additional value in terms of keeping and building that rapport, you want to constantly read back, preferably in their tonality, some of their own words. Remember, that is the ultimate truism for your client. That is the thing they're going to agree with most in this world, is their own words. So by constantly feeding back their own words, what will happen is that you will actually keep them fully engaged. Remember, just because they're paying doesn't mean that you've got subconscious buy-in, right? You have to kind of constantly, inverted comma, sell it, right? What does Roy Hunter always say? What's in it for me, right? That is what the subconscious says. What is in it for me? So you have to constantly motivate as you go through the process, right? And to talk about this, you know, other successes you've had with a similar problem. Refer to those. If you've done conversational, use metaphor. If you've done CC3, use metaphor. It's in our training. Pull the client in and keep them fully engaged. The last thing you want, if you get this situation where the client's sitting there, they don't know what to say, and you're sitting here with a mouthful of teeth, you don't know what to say, you are breaking rapport very, very quickly, right? That is bad. That is bad. If that happens, it's going pear-shaped. So what you need to do is the instant you feel or sense that's going to happen, or it's starting to happen, have something ready to say, right? Even if you have a few, we call them canned sentences, canned meaning they come in a can, right? A few sentences that you just kind of go into and you just keep the client engaged. Again, if you've been making complete notes, that'll never happen, because you just go back and you just say something like, okay, I just want to make sure of this. And then you take your clipboard and you say, so what you're saying is, and then you read back the exact words. You will light up the same neurology for that client. They will get pulled into the experience all over again. And there you go. And it will flow again. Right. Yeah.
I get
like
that.
I said before. Yeah. Go for it.
You probably come to that, but in a session that you do in your therapy room, for me, and that's how I teach it, is when you feel that the pre-talk time is over, I normally offer my client a bathroom break. And I don't know, do you do this with online sessions too? And what are the dangers of them being distracted by their ordinary life?
Yeah, it's a problem. That's why what you want to do is, even right in the beginning, even before you get into too much detail, or once they're comfortable enough, you need to get information about the environment. They need to tell you who else is in the house, where they are, what's happening. Remember, we mentioned that in a previous recording, that if there's like a partner in the next room and they can possibly hear them, you're not going to get that result, because they're not going to feel comfortable enough to talk to you. So that is where it's very, very important to have a little bit of background information. So if you know your client is, for instance, in their bedroom and the bathroom is right there, you know, then that's perfect, because there's no distractions. But if you know they're going into the house and the 2-year-old's there and everybody is there, yeah, then it becomes a little bit more tricky.
And not even just people. I mean, you go past the kitchen and you realize you haven't unpacked the shopping, or you're being reminded of what to cook later, or the washing needs to be hung up, or the animals need to be tended to. I think that could be a bit of a problem, because they get out of what you have now set up so carefully, and they kind of can step out of this in that time. Yeah.
Now, an easy way for you to be able to handle that is if you see your client come back and they're distracted, right? First thing to do is address it, because if you ignore it, it's not going to go away, right? So address it kind of in a respectful way. Say, everything okay? You look a little bit distracted. And then the client, let them explain to you, okay, no, this happened, that happened, or whatever. And then you acknowledge it. You talk a little bit about it, like 30 seconds. And then you take your trusty old clipboard again, and you feed back their last set of sentences before they went for a bathroom break.
Yeah.
And instantly you'll pull them back in,
yeah.
right? So that's a clever way for you to be able to go as if there was no distraction, no break in between.
Good. Thanks for clarifying that. That's how I would handle it too. Yeah. All right. So we have overcome this. We pre-talk them. We clear on the issue, the outcome, the waypoint. We kind of feel that we have the right rapport with them. We feel that they're ready for the induction, and then we go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think what we should add is, I'm not sure in practice how different practitioners necessarily transition from the pre-talk into the induction, but I do feel that it shouldn't be a sharp break, right? Because what happens is if the client goes, especially a new client, if they go in their mind, okay, now it's going to happen, then there might be resistance, right? There might be a little bit of fear. There might be a little bit of something. So in my practice, what we normally do is we start transitioning into induction long before induction, right? We're already inducing trance throughout, right? So that by the time we get to induction, they are so comfortable that it's a natural progression. But if you go, are you ready? We're going to do it now. then you're making a mistake, because you are actually putting a sharp break between pre-talk and induction.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
It should be a natural flow. It should be something that the client almost transitions into effortlessly.
Yeah.
Now, this is, there's something you want to add, Claudia?
Oh, well, I'm just trying, in terms of online, and you not really being in charge of where they are positioning themselves. So basically what I'm hearing you say is that you ask them, even in the pre-talk, already to position themselves, so that their body, wherever they are, in the position they will assume throughout the actual session.
Yes. Now, what I do is normally, I don't put it quite like that, but I put it in a way that they, for instance, I'm sitting like this, and now this is pre-talk, and I make sure the client can just lean back for induction. So I set it up, so make yourself comfortable so that when we do hypnosis, that you can just sit back. So that is similar as in my practice, where they can just lean back in the chair. And that tends to work beautifully. It's like you say, if they now have to start finding another spot to sit or find a place to now get comfortable for induction and for hypnosis, then you're actually breaking the momentum. And you want to keep that momentum. It must almost be an effortless flow.
Yeah.
Some clients actually sit in an office chair, like a high back with a support office chair that some of them can recline a little bit. And that is beautiful for me. Right? If they use that, that is perfect, because they're already there, they're already ready, and everything is in place. It's different for different people, right?
Sure. But even in a normal one-on-one sessions, I find sometimes, because I'm using an old-fashioned recliner, which I think I might change in the near future, because the break between I'm going to recline you now. And we haven't been reclined, but now we are reclining, is a suggestion, is a statement in and by itself. And what I'm losing sometimes is the opportunity, because although it's a very comfortable chair, when you're not reclined, you're not as comfortable as you would be when you are reclined. And sometimes hypnosis happens in the pre-talk, or you do it intentionally. And I find, what a pity that my client isn't reclined right now, so that I can just go for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, my practice, I've recently changed furniture over here, but these chairs that used to be here is actually not very comfortable. The clients sit fairly straight up, and we go for it right through like that. We don't recline or anything like that. But like these ones that can recline a little bit, I would actually have the client already sit back and relax even early on, during the process. And I'm not necessarily going to push for reclining. I think it's a nice thing, and I know people spend a fortune on a therapy chair that can do amazing things. But remember that in hypnosis, you don't necessarily want your client too comfortable.
Because they fall asleep, yeah.
And especially at their own home, eh? If an online session, if they, some clients will just go and lie on their bed and they lie flat on their back and they put the phone on the side. And then you have to say, you know what, let's just sit up. Hypnosis works better sitting up, right? Because what you're going to get is snoring. And I learned the hard way, where this person is lying flat on their back or even a little bit on their side. And before you know it, they're snoring and they're fast asleep. So remember, the bed and the posture and everything is an inferred suggestion to the mind and body that it's now time to go to sleep. So just kind of keep that in mind, and also keep your time zones in mind. Often with online sessions, especially with overseas clients, when it's during the day here, it can be at night for them, right? So if it's in your office hours, it might be late for them, right? And also factor that in. If they get too comfortable, then you're definitely going to have people fall asleep. So yeah.
Cool. And the obvious, of course, that now that we go into colder times, that you have the blanket nearby and things, so that, yeah, all of that needs to be set up. Okay, I mean, I think we talk enough about this in our courses, and I think everybody is aware of those things. All right, so is there anything else that you want to mention about the pre-talk?
I think that's about it for the pre-talk. It feels in place, I do feel, though, that just for our practitioners, that you can be confident, right? Your training has got everything you need. It's adequate. Everything's in there. The only way you're going to transition into online sessions is by doing it, right? Yeah, some people are looking for additional tools, additional information. That's not necessary. You don't have to reinvent the wheel for online sessions. You actually already have the skill set. All you now want to do is just kind of fine tune it to your specific style and to the medium, be that a laptop or a phone or whatever, the communication channel. And then also, and I think this is important to add to the pre-talk, is that sometimes you'll get little glitches on the connection. And then you'll lose their voice for a little while, right? And what you want to do is, they might say something very important right there, and people forget. So you might say to a person, just repeat that, and they might not even, especially if you're already inducing trance, they might not even remember what they just said, right? So what you want to do is you want to keep those complete notes. So then you go back, you say, we were talking about this, and we're discussing that, and then just repeat that. So you get that information, especially if you see emotion, right? If you see emotion and you ignore information, you're actually screwing up. So you want to have that detailed information around emotion. So watch them very, very clearly and calibrate on that emotion. And just like in your own practice, make sure they have tissues handy, right? They need to have those tissues handy, because people often forget that. Lots of people don't even have tissues at their own home. So then whatever they're comfortable with, toilet paper,
kitchen roll, whatever.
Yes, anything. Yeah, and then what I also find from some of our practitioners is that they are a little bit wary of engaging the emotion because it's an online session. So I think it's important for you to acknowledge and respect that wariness inside of yourself if you have it, and don't push for emotion right off the bat, but transition into it. Do keep in mind, though, that you need that emotion. If you're not going to engage deep and strong emotion, you're not going to get the results, right? The results will be less there. So if you're not comfortable, transition into it, but do have that goal in mind, to have your client experience that strong and deep and intense emotion. And before, you know, we have that multi-session approach. Before you get to analytical session, right, make sure that by then everything is set up. You know that it's a stable connection. You know the connection with this client's always stable. You do not want to do regression therapy and have the connection drop in the middle, and you know, that's not ideal, right? But regression therapy, it works fine. Everything works fine. The spiritual sessions, parts, regression, all of it flows beautifully in online sessions.
What do you do about the ideomotor signaling?
Claudia, I don't do ideomotors with online sessions, just because if I get them to have their hands visible, I have too little detail on the face, right? So what I want to do is I want to actually just set it up with a nod and a shake of the head. That's it. That's what I've got. That's what I use, and it works perfectly. Yeah, somebody has asked me that before, to maybe position the hand somewhere where you can see it, but then their posture changes, and then it's awkward, and then the emotion doesn't flow the way it should because of that mind-body connection.
Okay.
So for me, definitely ideomotors, better just with a nod and a shake. I know a lot of people are very fond, and they really love using the ideomotors, and it's good because ideomotors are so important. And yet, this is one area where you're going to have to make a sacrifice, in my opinion. And then also when it comes to induction, obviously you can't do physical deepness, right? You can't do arm drops. I had somebody ask me, can you have the client drop their own arm, right? Interesting things like that. No, you're going to have to do away with the physical ones. It becomes more linguistic. So it's more linguistic processes, all of it, which is more conversational, right? So that's why conversational hypnosis is so completely tailored for online sessions, because it's almost like it just flows.
The students also learn this basically in CC3 when we do group inductions.
Exactly. If you use group inductions, you just use those powerful suggestion sets, and you create scripting as an induction. That's linguistic, right? Because groups are also linguistic most of the time. So you can absolutely do that. So what we want to do here today is we want to talk a little bit about a pre-induction, right? So we're not going to teach induction on the online sessions because you've got the information, you know how induction works. Just want to say that, for instance, if you use the mastermind induction, do away with the arm drops. So still do the whole first part, the eye test, very, very important. Watch them very closely. That's another reason why you want their face close to the screen, where you can actually see, because sometimes this movement is so minute. If they're this far away, you won't see it. They literally need to be about this close for you to be able to see that eye test. And that eye test is very important for us, right? In the induction. And then your 3 visits to Bernheim, your fractionation deepener, works beautifully. You can't use your hand now, but you can just use your language. Open, that's right, close your eyes and go deeper, right? Just like that. So you can still do your fractionation. That works 100% fine. And then you just transition from there. You can use any kind of deepener you prefer, staircase, whatever, and then you'll test for somnambulism. All of that still works fine. It's basically just your arm drops, and then actually having your hands in front of the client and also like rocking and so on. And then be careful with your snapping, right? The snapping doesn't always go across the connection in the right way. It sometimes doesn't sound like a snap. I don't know, does it sound like a snap your side at the moment?
It sounds not really, no.
Yes. So
it hasn't got that same. I'm not a good snapper. I've never been one, but it loses that impact. It sounds like an odd sound. Yeah.
Yes. So be careful with your snapping. I've noticed the snapping doesn't always fly. It's like the clients don't necessarily recognize it for what it is. So you're going to have to preempt everything with your voice. it's completely linguistic now, right? So your physical elements are no longer going to be there.
But it's
and something that
yeah, sorry. No, I'm just thinking back, even if people haven't done the conversational course, we discuss all of that in CC3, because you don't really do a group induction snapping your fingers or things like that. But we only have like 9 minutes left, but is it possible to use other sounds like, I don't know, a singing bowl or anything else? Would you recommend that, or would you rather say no, stay away from that and just do it just linguistic?
I'd stay away from it, just because with your language, with your words, something interesting happens that the mind can put it in context. So even if a word comes out weird because of the connection, their mind will still be able to put that sentence and that word together. But when you have a weird sound with a different frequency, remember, all of these devices are built around the voice frequency. So they allow the voice frequency through and they block other frequencies. So if you have a high-pitched sound or too low a sound or whatever, then most probably the hardware is going to block it or influence the way it goes through. And then secondly, if it is in the same normal tonality range as our voice, then it will probably go unnoticed. Right?
And that brings me to another question. Sorry for keeping, I hope there isn't much more to say, but what about background music? I thought so.
That chows up all your bandwidth. So now what happens is, because remember, with these connections, you've got a certain amount of download speed and upload, and the upload is normally a lot slower than less than the download. So now what happens is, if you're playing background music, then that has to go across that link, and vice versa. If they have background music, you're going to get it, which means now some of the bandwidth that could be valuable suggestions being used by the sound, by the music, and now you'll get a lot more distortion, right? So it's an unfortunate thing, but no background music.
No, but I mean, we haven't mentioned it before, and I thought it was worthwhile mentioning.
It's very important. Thank you for that. Thank you for. You see, the problem with doing something for so often and so long is you kind of just get so used to it and take for granted certain things that but that is very, very, very important.
Yeah, but you also, if I'm correct, you also a practitioner of. Can I say you have a minimalistic style in practicing, whereby other people, they have the candles and the incense and the this and the that, which sometimes might be better, might be more important for the practitioner than actually for the client.
Stay calm.
It puts you in the mood, in the energy, in the frequency. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. You want to talk about the induction a little bit more, or what else? What do you want to use this time for?
Claudia, I think it's a good time to just cover the pre-induction quickly that I was talking about, just because with that then and everything we've covered so far, our practitioners will have a complete picture, right? I think in terms of the actual session itself, it stays the same, except for the little things we talked about today. Even trans-termination, even post-talk, they stay the same. There's not a lot of difference. We can see if we can make another video of that if there is enough demand for it. Let's see how the forum responds. Although for me it's so easy, right? So what I just want to talk about quickly is a pre-induction, and that is leading up to the induction, right? So what you want to do in order to get your client already starting to go into trance, what you want to do is you just want to make sure you move yourself a little bit closer, like I am right now, and then you start taking yourself into trance. Can you see the trance? Right? As I take myself into trance. And then as you take yourself into trance, you pace the client's environment. Now, obviously, the more you know about the client, the easier it will be for you to induce hypnosis, right? So let me just take that from the top. You're now talking, and now you want to start inducing trance. Then you say something to the client like, right, so as you are sitting there, listening to your voice, my voice, becoming more and more comfortable, we are here today doing the session for a reason. And just for a moment, just for now, allow all the sounds in the background, be it the sounds over there or the sounds over here, to become unimportant. And all that is important right now is my voice. As you focus your entire attention on my voice,
Oh, I
maybe
can feel
allow
the
your
pull,
attention
yeah.
to drift. You feel the pull?
Yeah.
And allow your entire attention to move to your body, noticing your posture, maybe your feet resting on the ground, your hands on your lap. Just become aware of your breathing and noticing the in-breath or the out-breath and the in-breath. Or maybe the little gap, the little moment of silence between the in and out-breath. And as you allow your attention to drift right into that right now, you can allow your eyelids to close down as you allow my voice to guide you. Right? So that is just a little pre-induction, just a little preparing them for induction, right?
Nice.
So yeah, instead of look at my fingers.
Yeah, yeah. I think many of our more experienced members may have in any way changed their induction and not always use fingers, and they might be quite more comfortable using linguistic ways. Yeah.
Yes.
Which can be sometimes more elegant, but you have to have a starting point somewhere. Yeah. That's awesome, Arno.
Thank you, Claudia. And then definitely remember you want that eye strain. So if you are not doing like I just did, where you just let them close their eyes, let them look up just to get that eye strain. That could be equivalent of looking at my fingers. Just a little kick off.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So what I suggest we do is we publish this and we hear the feedback, which so far has been quite tremendous. And we'll hear from our members whether they want, maybe now after this publishing, a webinar and questions and answers might be the right thing to do. Little niggly things that are important for some people. So let's see how it goes. But I thank you so much for this, to giving it so freely to all of us. And I'm going to render this and publish this and do my thing. And we're going to have this live in no time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Claudia.
All right. Thank you so much. Huh?